Hello, everyone. Hello, University of Ottawa students, and welcome to our self-care and self-compassion webinar, in which we will explore self-care and self-compassion and how applying both practices can actually improve mental health and wellness. My name is Severio Murarki Jr., and I am a mental health and wellness counselor at Counseling Services, and I look forward to speaking to you about self-care and self-compassion. Now, in this webinar, we will help define mental health and wellness. These are terms that are sometimes used interchangeably. Therefore, we will define what both of these terms mean. We will complete a mental health and wellness assessment, which, believe it or not, in my view, is fun. And we will provide you with 2 easy tips on how to improve mental health and wellness, which include self-care and self-compassion examples. Mental health is defined as the following. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence, and throughout adulthood. Now, another way to illustrate what mental health is, a way to think about it is that each of us has mental health just as we have physical health. And for each of us, we can experience both good and poor mental health, which can impact all areas of our lives. Now we will look at wellness. Wellness is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life. And wellness is more than becoming free from illness. It is a dynamic process of change and growth. Put differently, wellness is the quality or state of being healthy in body and mind, especially as the result of effort. Further, in counseling, we often say that mental health and wellness is synonymous with balance in our life. And when we have balance, this can help us manage symptoms of distress, which leads us to our next slide, which will help us assess our levels of wellness and help us reflect on our mental health as well. In this simple and short activity, I will ask a series of questions in which you will assess your personal wellness with either of the following responses: terrible, poor, okay, good, or great. On my end, I will try not to speed through this assessment to give you the time to reflect and respond accordingly. First question, how would you rate your diet and nutrition? Terrible, poor, okay, good, or great? Second, how would you rate your level of physical activity? Terrible, poor, okay, good, or great? Third question, how would you rate your amount and quality of sleep? Terrible, poor, okay, good, or great? Fourth question, how would you rate your ability to handle stress? Terrible, poor, okay, good, or great? Fifth question, how would you rate the quality of your connections to friends and family? Terrible, poor, okay, good, or great? And last question, how would you rate your mental and emotional health? Terrible, poor, okay, good, or great? As I mentioned earlier, we all have mental health, just as we have physical health. And our mental health can range from healthy, reacting, injured, or ill. What I appreciate about this continuum is that it also includes actions to take at each phase of the continuum. Therefore, if you find yourself in a reacting zone or ill zone, there are steps that can be taken to manage these symptoms. For instance, if we are healthy, green zone, you may wish to continue to focus on maintaining a healthy lifestyle. If you notice that you are reacting to stressors a little more than usual, you may want to recognize your limits and work on getting adequate rest, food, and exercise in order to manage. If, let's say, you're in the orange injured zone, you may be experiencing symptoms of anxiety, pervasive sadness, and hopelessness, which indicates that you may wish to seek help and talk to someone to explore these symptoms and help manage. Lastly, if you find yourself on the red ill zone, you may be experiencing excessive anxiety and depressed mood, for example, and it may be recommended to seek consultation as needed and follow up with a healthcare provider. Now, these are all ways to assess our needs and to better understand ourselves and how we are feeling, which is the essential first step. We would never want to bypass our thoughts and feelings and go straight to coping tools, as that would be like asking someone to put on a Band-Aid on a wound, but not knowing where the wound is. So once we know our needs, we can go to the next section, in which we explore ways to help add balance to our lives, which in turn can help improve our mental health and wellness. So let us begin. We will now discuss 2 tips to prevent burnout and take care of our wellness. Tip 1, self-care. Now, you may have heard of this term self-care as it is becoming more commonplace and more mainstream, and this is something that we are happy about. When I think of self-care, what comes to mind is the airplane analogy, which we commonly use in counseling. So when an airplane encounters low air pressure, the first thing that occurs is that the oxygen masks come down. And the rule of thumb is that you have to place yours first before you can help someone else. And that is the idea with self-care. The more we have balance, the more we are intentional with how we spend our time and meet our needs, the more it would help us face life's challenges that we all face. So here we see that the stress is reduced when we are taking care of our basic needs and making self-care a priority. This is a fact. Now we look at different self-care domains, which can be practiced on both a micro and macro level. For example, physical self-care can involve eating regularly, having a regular sleep schedule, exercise, even having a physician who you are connected with to meet regularly can constitute as self-care. When we explore psychological self-care, this may include making time for self-reflection, engaging in personal therapy, or even journaling and reading, anything that engages the mind and is enriching for you. For emotional self-care, this may involve connecting with your support system. Numerous studies indicate that social support is essential for maintaining physical and psychological health, and that there are harmful consequences of poor social support, and the protective effects of good social support reflect resilience to stressors. Additionally, emotional self-care can mean self-love and may be reflected in self-compassion, which, stay tuned, is our tip 2 of this webinar. Next, for spiritual self-care, this may involve connecting with one's faith, practicing meditation and prayer, but to each their own. And if you are not religious, this does not exclude you. Putting spiritual self-care in practice can also represent allowing time for reflection and spending time with nature, to name a few. workplace professional self-care. This allows for breaks, having a balanced workload, participating in peer support, engaging with coworkers, and participating in projects that are exciting and rewarding. Now, when it comes to examples of self-care, there are numerous, and as you can probably tell by looking at this extensive list, and this was done purposely. We want to highlight that self-care is not a one-size-fits-all approach. What is self-care for one person may not be for another. So this involves listening to what resonates with you, listening to what provides sustenance. Sometimes in the mainstream, self-care reflects exercise, eating healthy, having proper sleeping habits. And of course, these are all exceptional examples of self-care, but this is not all. We want to take this further. Self-care can include listening to your favorite track, going to your favorite coffee shop, or watching a Gigi's game. Again, anything that provides sustenance. Here we explore different aspects of self-care. We live in a world where we are constantly facing multiple demands, be it with school, at work, with friends, with family, on social media, where we can be on more than one site at once. And we have a tendency to do too much and feel pressure to keep doing more. Now, we like to propose important components of self-care to remember that may not always be talked about. The first, boundaries, which establishing healthy boundaries can be helpful in coping with stress and anxiety. Learning it's okay to say no, or to take this further, sometimes we can feel guilt when we say no. But remember that saying no to someone is actually saying yes to yourself. Assertiveness, which is a helpful skill in setting and maintaining healthy boundaries and standing up for oneself. One simple and effective tool may include using I statements. I don't know too many people who enjoy confrontation, and understandably so, it can be uncomfortable, but by using I statements to express feelings can be a way to prevent animosity. As an example, telling someone, I was hurt when you said that to me, can have a different tone, can have a different effect than if you maybe accuse someone, such as saying something along the lines of, you always make me feel bad, especially when you said that. Also, the therapy assisted online, the TAO platform, which I'll speak about later, has an excellent module on interpersonal communication, which provides useful tools to assert oneself. And lastly, letting go of perfectionism. This is self-care too. Perfectionism at its core is the need to seek approval, which can be heavy as carrying a ton of bricks. We may know this on some level, but we may need to remember that perfectionism does not exist. What is perfect for one person may not be perfect for another. So that step in just being and not striving for this illusion of perfectionism can have a restorative effect. And this is self-care as well. For tip 2, we look at self-compassion. So you may or may not have heard this term before, but I am certain that you've heard of the term compassion. And this is when, let's say, your friend is struggling, and without even thinking twice, you jump in and you show them kindness, you show them support, you show them compassion. Now, in essence, the idea with self-compassion is treating ourselves as we would a friend. In this slide, we see an image of Kristin Neff, who is a researcher, she's an author, and also a self-proclaimed self-compassion evangelist. And if you are interested in learning more about this concept of self-compassion, I encourage you to watch her TED Talk, The Space Between Self-Esteem and Self-Compassion, in which she talks about self-compassion in detail. And in addition, her website, selfcompassion.org, has plenty of resources, from meditation to exercises for you to incorporate self-compassion in your day-to-day. Here we will look at what self-compassion is. Then, on the next slide, we will look at what it is not. Self-compassion is self-kindness. It is a way to access self-kindness to cope and build resilience. It is when I suffer, when I fail, when I feel inadequate. Instead of being self-critical, we practice being gentle with ourselves just as we would with a friend. And it's about being objective. There is a place for positive psychology, but this is about objectivity and knowing when I'm being kind to my friend, you know what? It's authentic, it's genuine. So let me treat myself with that same standard. Self-compassion is common humanity. It is when I feel vulnerable, when I suffer, when I fail, when I feel inadequate. It's knowing that this is part of the human condition, as opposed to having the thought of, why is this happening only to me alone? And as a result, this can alleviate some of those feelings of isolation that could come about when we feel that we are the only ones experiencing hardships. Self-compassion involves mindfulness. It is having a non-judgmental and receptive mindset and treating our thoughts like a passing cloud. It's not bypassing emotions. It is understanding them as a way forward. And in my view, there is something empowering about this notion, as it involves feeling emotions and saying, hey, even when I'm having these uncomfortable and not fun emotions, the sky, it's not falling. I'm still standing. And that in itself can be empowering. Now we will look at what self-compassion is not. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It is when we suffer, when we fail, when we feel inadequate. Self-pity says, why? Why is this happening only to me? And this in turn can feel isolating and lead to disconnection. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. People sometimes fear being compassionate to oneself, as they think that this can be a gateway to laziness and not achieving one's goals. In that same token, some people think, well, if I'm hard on myself, that could be a motivator. However, studies show that sometimes the things that we say to ourselves are not even the things we would tell someone that maybe we're not ultra fond of. And as a result, not only are we the bully kicking, but we are also at the receiving end taking the kick. And this can actually elevate symptoms of distress. Therefore, learning and putting self-compassion in practice can help manage symptoms and essentially increase our well-being. Self-compassion is not self-esteem. Now, self-esteem is not always a bad thing. However, self-esteem is contingent on our success, failure, on our traits. So this could actually fluctuate. Self-esteem needs to compare ourselves to others in order to feel good. Where self-compassion knows that all humans deserve compassion and understanding, and that it is our birthright to feel good. It is not contingent on anything or anyone. Self-compassion says, you are enough. Now, just a brief overview of some of our learnings. You cannot take care of others until you take care of yourself. One way to take care of yourself is to take time for self-care. The second way to take care of yourself is through self-compassion. In essence, self-compassion is treating ourselves as we would a friend. And self-care and self-compassion are two ways to help manage symptoms of distress and can improve mental health and wellness to help us face challenges and build resiliency. To conclude, the following are other resources that may be of help at your time as a student at U Ottawa. U Ottawa community resources include virtual mental health and wellness website, International Students Office, U Ottawa Health Services, academic accommodations, Human Rights Office, peer-to-peer services, Academic Writing Help Center, Student Union, Graduate Student Association, and many, many more. In addition, there are after-hour resources that could be of support. There is Good to Talk, which is a helpline specific to post-secondary students. There's Empower Me. This is another counseling service available to you. Mental Health Crisis Line, Family Services Ottawa, and also TEL 8. And there's also TAO, which stands for Therapy Assisted Online, which is a tool to explore symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, interpersonal skills, symptoms of stress, and even substance use. There are videos you can watch, questions you can answer to help understand yourself and help manage these symptoms. Lastly, if you are in danger to yourself, or if you know of anyone else who may be in danger, you can always contact 911 or visit the nearest emergency hospital. So thank you for watching the Self-Care and Self-Compassion webinar. We hope you found it insightful and of help. Please remember, if you need support, do not hesitate to contact us. You can email us at counts@uottawa.ca, COUNS@uottawa.ca. And if you are ready to make an appointment, you can book an appointment anytime by visiting our website. All of our contact information is on our website, and you could find us by searching the counseling services on the U Ottawa Mental Health and Wellness website. If you are looking for more resources and self-help tools, please feel welcome to visit our website and click on the Get Started section. So thank you again. And again, we hope you found this webinar to be insightful and of help.